Planning Board. Just a reminder to everyone, this meeting will be recorded. We have quite a long agenda. We're going to try and move through quickly. There's several public hearings. I'll remind you later, but if you do need to speak at a public hearing, please keep your comments brief. We've had some extended meetings lately, so if somebody's already made a point, it's most likely that we've heard it. But, you know, I do want to recognize everybody that wants to speak, so. We have an A&R plan for Ridings 2. We have a continuation of the public hearing for 161 Milk Street, continuation of the public hearing for 1 Gleason Street, Village Commons, an update on Village Commons progress, public hearing for special permit and site plan application at 134 Fisher, public hearing for site plan application at 0 Bridle, and a public hearing for the adoption of rules for deposit of a performance security per MGL, Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53G and a half. We're going to actually start with that last one because it essentially gives, the planning board will decide whether to give the director of planning authority to sign decisions for the board. We've had some decisions delayed in getting everyone's signature. So do you want to summarize that a little more, or?
Yeah, and just to clarify, you don't mean the 53G and a half, that's a separate thing.
Oh, my mistake. That's the adoption of the rules.
Right. Just the ability of the chair or the director of planning to sign decisions, which I can summarize.
Sure,
Okay.
please.
So as we ran into with the last decision, it was difficult coordinating everybody to come in and sign the decision. So it's recommended that we do something similar to what we have for the A&Rs, where either I have the authority from the board to sign the decision after the board makes the decision and reviews the draft, or the permission is granted to the chair to sign the decision on behalf of the rest of the board. It would still be reviewed by the board and approved at the public hearing per Mass General Law, but it would just be the signatory.
Jenny, does that means then it would be, but as the one you, just the ANRs, but also it would allow it's either you or the chairman of the board to sign.
You could word the motion that way,
I'd
yes.
rather have those both in case, for example, you were out of town or sick or whatever. I think giving those two people the right to sign makes sense, just so you have a backup in case there's a problem. So that would be my only recommendation.
Any other questions on that? Okay.
So you would make a motion to allow the chair of the planning board or the director of planning to sign the decision on behalf of the planning board.
What do you want to?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0 in favor. Great. Why don't we do the A&R first? Ridings 2. Steve, you have something for us?
Good evening, Steve Benacasa. Here for the Ridings 2 for the A&R plan. The reason for this A&R plan is that the town engineer did, after further reviewing the subdivision, decided that she wanted the drainage that was for the back slope and for the lots to be on, to be part of the homeowners association. So this is a request from the town engineer that we created this A&R plan, and we did it pretty much as she actually did a little sketch, and we pretty much did it exactly the way she wanted. We tweaked it a little bit because of the trail. We kept the trail outside of the A&R plan. Other than that, we did it exactly according to the town engineer's request. That's pretty much all I have.
Jenny, have you had a chance to review this?
I have, and it does meet the requirements of A&R, and the town engineer and conservation director are comfortable with this change.
And the building inspector?
Yes.
Any questions? I have no questions. Anyone want to make a motion on this?
I move that the planning board approve and endorse the A&R plan entitled Plan of Land prepared by MLG and Associates, prepared for Casa Investments and dated October 12, 2023.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0. Thank you, Steve. Is there anything else?
No, when do you want me to pick the plan up?
It's just one signature, Jenny? Why don't you come in tomorrow?
I have to sign it, so can you
Come
come
in
back
tomorrow
tomorrow?
and get it? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is a continuation of the public hearing for site plan review application at 161 Milk Street. We have a letter from the applicant requesting a continuance to the December 12th, 2023 meeting. Jenny, do I have to read that letter into the record?
No, you don't need to read it. It's
Okay.
part of the record.
Is there any questions from the board? We have a motion.
It's the first page, I believe.
I move that we continue the public hearing for 161 Milk Street at the request of the applicant until December 12th, 2023.
I second that motion.
Do we need the time of the hearing?
30, yeah.
Okay. Is it okay to put the time of the hearing in there? Okay. I wasn't sure if that had to be in the motion. Okay. I had a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0. All right, moving on. We have a continuation. Well, let's do the update on Village Commons first. Jenny, I know there was a long list of things. You want to take us through those individually, or?
Yes, I can, and as you have in front of you, the list was updated today after some conversations with the town engineer and the applicant, so that's included in your packet, and the updates from the time that you received the original memo are in orange, so that you can see them there. So I can pull it up on the screen too. So I included the list of original requests from the July 26th letter to the applicant, and as you can see here, a majority has been completed. There are a few notes on a couple of them. In regards to the top course of pavement for what we're considering phase 1 of the project, that is completed, and it's paved. There are pavement markings that still need to be done. For example, there were a couple of the no parking fire lane paintings that were missed, so those are going to be done this week. And then additionally, there will be temporary painting of the no parking fire lane on what we're considering phase 2, which does not have the top course of pavement yet. So that does need to be done, and that's noted there on the letter, or on my memo, sorry. The lighting plan was submitted to DRB and approved. The light poles, the bases and wiring for the light poles are in, but the light poles do still need to be installed. That technically wasn't on the letter, but it was part of what was approved by DRB. The landscaping plan was approved by the DRB on October 3rd. I know there was some confusion about which landscape plan went with this project, but we did get that sorted out with the, with WDA, and the arborvitae were planted also yesterday and today that border the property. So that was completed.
Hey, can I ask a question about that? What is the protection against those arborvitae dying if it's too late to have planted them?
So in the conditions of, my recommended conditions, I did include something that they need to be replanted if they do die. For the dumpster enclosure, it was completed, and the town engineer, as a side note, had a question about the additional dumpster for the proposed apartment building, and so there is room for the additional dumpster in there once that project is complete. The sidewalk that runs along the property line of 125 Fisher Street, that has been completed all the way up to Gleason. The handicap ramp on the crosswalk across Dania Drive near the proposed retail building. So the ramp was installed. There is only one ramp, but the DPW was comfortable with that because they felt that it would just be ruined essentially with the phase 2 construction. So there is a ramp, ADA ramp on only one side. And then it's recommended that the second ramp be installed prior to the certificate of occupancy. The board had decided at a previous meeting not to require the curbing along the driveways. The fire hydrants, those were complete and were approved. The issue of the ponding water, our engineering department has been in contact with the applicant's engineer, Mike Scott, and they are working on a final solution. They've been going back and forth. And so it's recommended that that be completed prior to the issuance of a building permit for phase 2, should the board grant that. The community room is finished, and they did call for a final inspection. And so the sign off is still needed from the building department and the fire department. And then there were just 2 additional, I skipped one, I'm sorry. The water shutoff valve, that was modified and completed. All of the construction debris and equipment was relocated to the front. I will note that there is a pile of debris and 1 machine, but those do belong to the neighboring property. In regards to the swale and riprap along the village, the Westborough Village property line, again, it was completed, but the applicant's engineer, Mike Scott, is still working with the engineering department on a final solution just to make sure that that's adequate. Then again, the handicap ramp was installed in the community center, and they're waiting for a final sign-off. And then there were just 2 additional comments received from engineering, one in regards to the signs along the east side of the driveway. That was missed before, but the applicant said that he will be adding those signs. And then there was a question about the mailbox, but I think we got that sorted out, that the mailbox location was approved by the design review board, and then going forward on the plans, it needs to be on there to make sure we're all looking at the same plan. There will be a separate mailbox for phase 2.
Yeah, is that going to be handicap accessible?
Which, the first one?
Yep.
That's still an open question. I need to talk to the building department on the requirements of that, but it was done and has been done, so I'm not sure if that was a requirement before or how the design was planned.
Yeah, I don't think it was in the original design plan, actually, that I remember.
Okay.
But it may be, you know, a requirement now under ADA, I have no idea.
I honestly
Let's
can't
hear what the
answer
building
that.
commissioner has to say then. Any questions from the board? It seems like you've made substantial progress on this. My feeling is that I would recommend that we not pursue enforcement action at this time. There are some remaining items, but I think we've made enough progress that I feel confident that we're headed in the right direction over there. Does anybody disagree or want to discuss that
I
further?
think you're correct.
All right, so why don't we then move on to the continuation of the public hearing? Jenny, I'll let you summarize where we're at on this.
Okay, and then do you plug in with your presentation also while I'm talking?
Have the letter and the 2 parking options. If you have them, you can.
Why don't you go ahead? So the last update, and it will be put up on the screen, but the applicant has provided a proposed modified parking plan per the board's request at the last meeting, and it shows 2 options which add additional parking. One adds parking to the rear of the property, and one adds additional parking to the front of the property. So the applicant can talk more about that. And we did forward it to the current residents for review as well. So the board will need to decide which parking plan they're comfortable with for the applicant to proceed with. And then I also included in your packet just some recommended conditions. The board, of course, does not have to make a decision tonight, but these are just recommended conditions to think about.
Did you have comments or just naming it?
Saloni Chadha from WD for phase 2 of the project. So we did submit 2 options for additional parking. One at the rear of the site. Here on the screen, there are 4 possible additional parking spaces next to the existing parking. And then in option 2, we can add more parking along the central green area. Here, I'm showing the maximum number of parkings that we can add, so we can pick and choose if we only want to add the 3 towards the western edge of the green space, or we only want to add 1, really depending on what the board feels right. But this is the maximum encroachment possible along the edges of the central green space.
Okay, questions from the board?
Yeah, my question, out of pure curiosity, and I didn't get a ruler out or anything, but what is the distance between the parking in the front of the building, between the 2 sets of spaces where you've got 4, and then across from that you've got 4 more? What is the distance in feet between those 2?
That should be 20 feet at minimum.
So, yes, it should be. I'm just
It is.
wondering.
It is 20
But
feet.
then you're also planning to put some trees in there? I mean, that's what the landscaping showed.
So are you saying between these 2 spaces? The green space?
So the new parking spaces, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them
right.
on there.
All right.
What's the distance between there and the 4 spaces there?
There.
Yeah.
I know, I'm looking for the scale on here, and
Yeah, quite frankly, I was lazy and didn't take a ruler out. But I kind of wondered
so
what the distance
it's
was
about
between those.
somewhere between 30 and 40 feet, I would guess.
Yeah.
Just from,
It should be around 35 feet. I think 30 to 40 should be a good guess. Right now, I don't have a scale, but
so, anybody know how far it is from here to the wall in the back? Is that 30 feet from here to there?
That's further than 30 feet.
Just trying to get a,
Yeah, I was trying to visually get an idea.
I believe from this wall to the entrance
Yeah,
door should
it's
be
1 to
around
20.
25 feet between the wall and the door of the entrance.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
so between 30 and 40? Showing off, John, you're showing off. All right.
Nice.
Youngsters with their technological skills. All right, so any questions? All right, do we have, I think we withhold a decision on this until we hear public comments?
Yeah. How many spaces are we looking to add, generally?
Well, I'd like to hear public comments on how many of the existing residents would like.
If the public comments say that they want to add all of these spaces, are we okay with that?
Well, I don't think you can add all of them for the green space. You can only do option 1 or 2. You can't do both, correct?
We could do the option 1 and then some parts of option 2. I mean, they could choose to do all the parking. They could go as much as they want, but we have the green space allowance for sure. The idea here, when we've discussed many times, is to retain the integrity of the green space, and that's why these were not proposed earlier, but these are the possibilities at max.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we have to hear from the public.
Okay, all right. All right, so we have some proposed conditions. How do you want to proceed with this? Do you want to go to we should probably, I mean, I'm not sure I'm ready to go through we have 45 proposed conditions on this. Have you had a chance to review those?
So first, if you can take public comment at this meeting, if anybody's here that wants to make it. And then once you close the hearing, you don't have to vote on the decision. You close the hearing and then you can deliberate and then make a decision.
Right, I guess I'm reluctant to close the hearing in case the public has any comments on one of the 45 conditions.
I would be okay with just hearing public comment tonight, taking the time between now and the next meeting to review the conditions, have Farouk review the conditions, and then take public comment next meeting, and then close the hearing and deliberate.
And it also allows John to be here.
Yeah, I'd like to have John here, and I agree with you, John.
All right, so we're not going to close the hearing, we'll just take public comment tonight on the parking. And then, will these conditions be available for the public to review before the next meeting?
Yes, this is public
The meeting
information.
packet is all available online,
Right.
so, okay.
My
So-
only concern, just quickly, is we're really so minimizing the green space back there that, I'll be interested that I think the owners need to think about the fact that the extra parking is really going to so terribly limit any green space in this particular project for phase 1, for the. So, I mean, it's their choice, obviously, but, it was set up originally because of the green, to add some green space, and it really unavailable.
Yeah, and I know there was some discussion in the past about the owners widening their driveways, and we said that would be a request from the HOA at some point in the future, right? Isn't that how we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not dealing with
And I'm just
that.
wondering whether,
Really considered part of this hearing. It could be a separate agenda item.
no, and I understand that, but would the creation of these spaces max out the lot coverage and prevent them from doing something like that in the future? Like, it looks to me like you're only at 50% lot coverage, even with this design,
I
right?
don't think it's a green space. It's
With
shown
this
on the plan.
design, we have not done the calculations yet with these two options, but as it stands currently, before these options, we were at 53% open space.
At 50%?
53%
53%
open space.
And the requirement is 40?
Yes.
And I do have the calculations for what it would be if they widen their driveway by, I believe it's 3 feet. So I had
think
previously
we'll have
done
to
those
bring it up
calculations based on the existing
Right.
plan. So I would need to do that again after the board decides.
Yeah, I think I would need the calculations to make a final decision on it, because if, I don't want to prevent them from doing that 3-foot widening in the future if that's their preference.
It was a very small, just to.
So in other
no,
words,
it
I
was
don't want to.
Very small, yeah.
If we can only approve the 4 in the back to stay under that 60-40 ratio, I need those calculations done at some point.
Yeah, Jenny, the thing is, I'm sorry, going out to look at that, there's, the driveway has room for 1 car,
It would still have room for only 1 car.
but that's not what they wanted. They wanted room for 2 cars. I mean, originally when we went
That's-
out there, there was,
Right, but that's not the current request. It's essentially to widen it enough to have pavement to go to the side door.
so they have changed the request, because the original request was to be able to park 2 cars. So they wanted to widen the driveway enough so that they could put 2 cars side by side there. But if
Yeah.
they have then withdrawn that essentially and just want to widen it.
Well, we don't have any,
at the door, that's all I
we're
care.
getting sidetracked on this driveway thing, because Jenny made the point, that's not what we're discussing in the public hearing. That would be a separate request.
Correct, and it
I
is,
just-
a
I
ver-
just-
it's a, it would be a minor modification.
I guess
to
I
it.
would just like to know the calculations of these 2 designs on the open space lot coverage.
I would recommend that the board state their preference so that those calculations be made.
Okay.
Best case
All right,
scenario, and
so
then we'll go from there.
we'll hold it off on a vote on that until we hear from the public. And then before the meeting's over, we'll give you a preference on which parking design to go with, if it's going to be changed at all.
All right.
All right. What other outstanding business do we have on this? Anything?
No?
Okay.
Nothing else.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the board? I will remind everybody to please keep your comments as brief as possible. All right. So, discussion on the 2 parking.
See the comment?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just please keep your comments short.
Prabhat Pradhan, 4 Dania Drive. Yeah, like based on the discussion, I would like to know, how we are proceeding. Plus the fence also, based on how we are going to proceed with the parking. The fence, if you can put little bit, on the curb, or if you can, if the builder can build this parking space fast so that we can start utilizing, so we don't need to use the other space actually.
All right. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you
Yeah,
because of the
sure.
microphone.
Yeah. So the fence we are planning to put on the road, right? So if the fence can be put after the parking space, whatever parking we see, right? So that if you put the fence on the road, then it will be difficult to back up the car from the garage. Plus another request is if they can build this parking space earlier so that we can start using, then we don't need to depend on the parking space near the commercial building.
Okay. What is your time frame if one of these parking is approved?
Well, excuse me. As soon as I get the approval, I'm going to go ahead and start, getting the transfer of the other land over to the town. And hopefully in another week, we'll be 100% complete with all the items. So we should be able to get started once the bank is all lined up.
Okay.
And then I'll get started on that.
Okay, so one of the conditions is a construction schedule?
Yes.
Right. So when you do that construction schedule, could you put these new parking spaces as early as possible in that construction schedule.
Okay.
I realize that you've already done the paving there. I'm just not,
Yeah, which parking spaces are you talking about?
well,
Those
we haven't
three,
the new-
three and 8 of them?
you're talking about the new parking spaces,
New
right?
parking spaces, yeah.
So, and I just want to clarify, are you talking about the spaces on the rear of the property or the spaces towards the front? Because,
We haven't decided which ones
Right.
we're going to
okay,
approve yet, but whichever ones do get approved, it sounds like the residents
they
want
have
to
to
start
approve it
using
first.
those as soon as possible.
just keep in mind that for the ones in the front, once that's an active construction area, it will be difficult to have parking spaces there because, the fire department will still need access and they will have the separate construction entrance, but it may be difficult to maneuver in some of those areas.
I thought the parking spaces were the last piece essentially.
Be-
Because he's gonna have to dig up the green space there. I mean, this is a reconfiguration of the existing parking lot. And so I would have thought you'd wait till after construction before you put these parking spots in. Doesn't make sense to me in the front ones to do it before.
As part of the approved plan, not approved plan, as part of the plan submitted to you, the engineer had proposed there will be a safety fence running from the side of the dumpsters all the way across and then making a right turn. So those parking spaces would be enclosed within within the fenced area, so the construction can go on. I mean, as much as I'd like to help them out by doing the parking first, but I don't know what the urgency is to have that parking space. There are tons of parking in the back, nobody parks there now. So, I mean, it will be done, whatever you approve, this one or that one. But
Okay,
yeah,
understood.
I don't see the urgency of it.
All right, understood. And I'm sorry, the other issue, we got sidetracked on those spaces. I'm not sure that's going to be feasible based upon that construction fencing, safety fencing. I don't know if you'll be able to even get to those parking spaces if they're created.
But if you did the 4 in the back,
If you did the 4 in the back, we
Those
might be
could
able
be
to do
done now,
those
right?
earlier.
yeah.
Yeah, those could be done.
And
You
that's
could do
on,
the 4 in the back earlier?
and the other benefit of the 4 on the back is that, the other benefit of the 4 spaces in the
If you
back.
did the ones in the back,
Yeah, the benefit of that is if it's for the residents who are currently there, I don't think anyone in the new apartment building is gonna walk all the way to the back of the site to use those spaces.
Yeah.
So they would be almost.
that can be
exclusive
done
to them.
anytime.
Okay, all right.
So the fence can be put like on the curb actually instead of the road, because if you put the fence on the road, it will be little difficult to back up the car actually.
Okay, so it's not going to be on the road, it's going to be on the
No,
edge
it will
of the
be right
greens?
on the, wherever their marking is. If you look at that plan, you see the dumpster enclosure, oh, where did that go? Okay, right now. You see that little dash line? It will be parallel to that on the other side of the roadway. Can you move your cursor to where the fence is gonna go? Yeah,
It
right
should
there.
be on the inner side of the curb,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
along here.
all the way up, down, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
all right. All right,
all right, thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? All right. Any other questions from the board? Do you want to discuss the parking? I mean, I really need a lot coverage
Yeah, I like
numbers.
the lot coverage. The other thing is, I don't see why we couldn't improve both plans. I mean, it seems either or because one's in back.
No, that's why I want the lot coverage, because I may be supportive of creating the 4 in the back and the ones in the
That's
front.
what I mean,
Or
yeah.
some of the ones in the front, right? Because my concern, I'm a little concerned that there might not be enough parking for the 39 bedrooms, what is it? I don't know.
That parking
36.
was already in there to cover for that. So this was an addition too, wasn't it?
Right, but I think by creating some more guest parking might be beneficial here.
Yeah. That's fine.
I have one more thing to mention to the board. I had heard through conversations in the last meetings, especially Hazel had brought that up about her concern about not having enough green space. So what I did, back when I planted all the arborvitaes, I added a whole bunch of green space there.
Oh, great.
And 6,000 square feet of it. And that they can play anything they want over there. So there's a lot of green space that I added was not on the plan, just so you know. just out of,
Well, you know,
because I wanted to do it.
You know,
so.
I'm a fan of keeping the green space, but I've heard from the residents that they
Yeah,
need more
so
parking.
6,000 square feet, that's a
I
lot.
don't want to get into a situation
Right.
when your building is built where guests are having to park on curbs or,
Right.
you know, whatever, because there's not enough guest parking. I don't think anybody's going to be happy with that. We've seen that at, you know, a certain brewery project, and it doesn't make me happy. So, anyway, getting sidetracked. Any other discussion or anything else we need to cover on this?
I think just feedback to the applicant on which option or both options you're asking them to come back with a revised plan for.
I would like to see an option with, personally, I'd like to see an option with the 4 spaces in the back, and I would like to see some of those spaces in front created, but I need to see the lot coverage.
I was thinking 4 spaces in the back, the 3 parallel spaces, and the 1 additional space next to the 2 spaces, eliminating the 5 spaces.
Yeah,
3 trees, you'll save a little bit more open space. You'll still have
yeah,
extra spaces.
I'd be supportive of that.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
do, I like the idea of keeping as much of the, we wanted a courtyard kind of green space in the middle, and I think that's still being maintained to some degree with that. So I guess I just need to see the lot coverage numbers before you get a final.
And I'm sorry, which spaces?
So keep the individual space down at the bottom,
Okay,
the 3 parallel parking spaces,
okay.
and then the 4 in the back.
So not those 5.
Not those 5.
So just doing the calculation of,
Add one.
No, that was the 1 adding on to the 2 right there. It's already shown.
so just doing a calculation of adding 8 new parking spaces, that'll be 1,440 square feet. And we are adding more than 11,000 square feet of green space during this modification. Should not affect the,
It won't go over the 46.
no, it
Okay.
should not.
All right, does anybody want to discuss that further? Do we need to vote on that recommendation, or is it just part of the
No,
modification?
I don't think you need to vote on it. You'll vote on the final plan. They'll submit that final plan for the next meeting. And that will be
So
the
we're
plan
talking
of record.
the ones in the back plus the 3 parallel, and then the 3 across from the residence, and scrapping the 5.
Yeah, if the
It's
homeowners,
really just one new one across from the residence, but yeah, scrapping those 5 in the middle,
Okay. You know, as I said.
retaining the
I'm glad
trees
to
and the
see
green
some
space. I like that concept. Okay,
A little bit wider of a green space in that main section.
Right.
all right.
Okay.
If there's nothing else, we can continue this. Anybody want to make that motion?
Yeah, I move that we continue the public hearing for the Gleason special permit T-OV 2014-1 for Village Commons from tonight until the 14th of December, no, 12th of December at 6:30 PM.
can that motion?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0. I will say, there are 45 proposed conditions. If anybody in the public wants to review those, they're available on the planning board website. You know, I think it's important that
And I will
we are
point
thorough
out,
on those conditions.
yep,
So,
and I will point out for the conditions that those are in addition to the existing conditions unless specified in the modified decision.
okay, very good.
I have one favor to ask. I've been asked to do the painting, the striping of the 2 areas that have absolutely no use, and they're saying to draw the parking line, not the parking lines, but no parking line, and then also the fire lane. I'm willing to do everything else that is of importance, including the area that is not paved yet, but it is important, right at the entrance.
Have we heard from the
So-
fire department on that?
So I can
gonna
work
do-
with her. if
I'm
that's
going to defer to the fire department on that, Farouk. If the fire department wants it painted, I'm going to recommend that it be painted.
It's not the fire department that wants it, though.
Well, it was referenced by the DPW because it was just part of the plan.
Yeah.
I
You
haven't
cannot
heard-
even go there. It's going to be all fenced in, so.
I haven't heard back from the fire department specifically about the painting, but they do want to make sure that that area is not blocked.
Yeah.
So that was the concern, that they want to make
Would the-
sure that they would still have access during construction to that area and nobody will be parking along there.
So you're basically asking permission to not do something as.
Just
when we
marking the no
that's
parking lane,
scheduled?
that's
This
up
is novel,
front.
because normally you just don't do it. I'm sorry, it's, I find
Yeah,
it
we'll do it
alarming.
after it's all done and repaved.
If it's going to be in the fence, I don't see why we need it.
Could I suggest
No.
Totally,
that, Jenny, if you could check with the fire department and the DPW and what they specifically need at this time, I think he could go ahead and do what is not needed till after he finishes the construction. Those things can wait.
Okay, so it would be the fire department that makes that final decision. So I will check with the fire department. If they say, yes, absolutely, we want that temporarily painted, the applicant will do it. If they say, no, it can wait, then it can wait until the construction on the phase
Okay,
2 is
that's
begun.
fair.
Okay.
And as long as they're clear that it's inside the fence, when they make that decision, so, okay. We've continued this, so we'll see you on December 12th,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll get it done next year.
All right. Well, you have to review those conditions too, because, there's a lot of them.
I haven't received those yet, but I'm sure I will, right?
Well, they're available on the website, and
Oh, they are?
I'm sure we'll
Okay.
send them to you.
I'll send them to you.
Okay.
To get that deed over if it isn't there.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a special permit and site plan application at 134 Fisher Street. And I have to read the public hearing notice into the record. All right. Legal notice, Town of Westborough, Office of the Planning Board, notice of public hearing pursuant to the rules and regulations relative to special permits under Section 4.6 and 8.1 of the zoning bylaws of the Town of Westborough and Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9. The Westborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on November 14th, 2023, at 6:30 PM in the Great Hall of the Forbes Building, second floor, Westborough, Massachusetts, on an application regarding the property at 134 Fisher Street, Westborough, Mass., parcel ID 1851, to allow two special permits. One, to allow a transit-oriented village development containing 18 small houses, and two, to allow one parking space per unit instead of the required 2 parking spaces. The owner applicant is Richard Record. Any person wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place noted above. A copy of the application and plan are available for review in the Westborough Planning Board offices at 45 West Main Street, Westborough, Mass., and the Town Clerk's office at 34 West Main Street, Westborough, Mass. during regular business hours. And that's Westborough Planning Board, and that was in the Worcester Telegram and Gazette on October 18th and 25th. All right, Jenny, do you have any introductory comments, or should we go straight to the applicant?
Goes straight to the applicant.
Name, title for the record, please.
Okay, for the record, my name is Peter Barbieri, an attorney with Fletcher Tilton, representing Richard Record, who we thought was going to be here, but evidently something must come up. So, in with us this evening is Patrick Healy from Thompson Liston, the engineer on the project. So, the plans before you, and we just got correspondence recently from Department of Public Works and Engineering, a little bit confused. So let me explain. The project before you right now is just for 18 units, all one-bedroom, individual building units in a transit-oriented village, which requires a special permit under your bylaw, and as well as site plan review. So if we can go to the plan, so this is what we're looking, or what we're seeking approval for, 18, again, single units, one bedroom. Entry basically in the middle of the site off of Fisher Street. Entry into the site with a sidewalk extending basically to the first intersection, and that would be the end of the sidewalk aspect. So again, site plan approval needed, special permit for the village needed. The buildings, as you see them, are only separated 12 feet rather than the required 20 feet. So we need a special permit or relief from the building separation requirement. We would prefer to keep them individual units rather than combining them and making them duplex, which then we could provide the 20 feet. The other aspect that we're seeking relief on is the size of the units themselves. The units themselves, exterior measure 24 by 26, which is less than the required minimum of 750 square feet per unit. And the last item, I believe, we're looking for is in the nature of the parking requirements for each of the units. As you can see on the plan, there's a driveway for each of the units that only basically fits one car. So we're seeking relief from that. We heard comments, or we received written comments, and we had an opportunity to meet with the select board, and there is concern as to the only one parking space per unit. So we're looking at revisions to the plan to provide an area as a common parking lot to provide a minimum or in the range of 1.5 spaces per unit. There are a number of other changes we have to make given the comments we received, including looping of roadways and a number of other aspects. So we have to revise the plans to come back with you and have staff look at those. This plan, as you can see, also depicts the 18 units now being proposed to be served by a septic system because of the current moratorium you have on sewer systems. The intent would be as we go to the 40 units, which would be a phase 2, then presumably the sewer moratorium would be lifted. There may be changes in the bylaw, or we'd have to do a transfer of development rights to add the extra numbers of units, but that's in the future. We did provide that plan to get an understanding of what the site could potentially look like at full development. But under this plan, as referenced on the zoning charts, the lot itself is over 200,000 square feet. There's over 328 feet of frontage on Fisher Street. So lot in and of itself complies. The location of the buildings in regards to the perimeter of the site complies with the setback requirements of the bylaw. The lot coverage, we're only, with this plan, at 6%. Lot coverage is allowed to be up to 60%. In open space for this plan, we're required to have 40%, and we're at 61. And lastly, from the viewpoint of units per acre, this plan is only 3.7, and within that district, you're allowed up to 14. So again, absent the relief as to the size of the units, the parking spaces, and the building separation, the layout in all the design, particularly as we revise it, will comply with the requirements of the bylaw. So I'll let Pat describe the plan itself, utilities, drainage, and those type of things, but that's the overview of the project and the relief that's required.
Thank you. I think, Peter, you covered a lot of the aspects that I was going to mention about zoning compliance and so forth. So if we could just talk about the sewer, water, and stormwater, I guess that would cover most of our topics. So what we're proposing is a sewer system consisting of an on-site septic system for the first phase. That would consist of a 2-chamber septic tank and a pump chamber. The soils here are primarily sand soil, so it's a good situation for the density we're looking at. However, this property does lie within the Zone 2 to a public water supply, so we're limited to how many gallons per day per acre we can put into a septic system. And that's the governing factor for determining the 18 units that are proposed on the plan. So essentially, we can have 2,000 gallons per day. We're at 18 units, which is just under that. So that's how we arrived at our present development plan. So you can see at the south end of the site, there's an infiltration basin proposed to handle the stormwater in terms of providing recharge and detention of the stormwater. Again, it's an extremely sandy site. It's a good location to put an infiltration basin, but there are some strict standards to meet where separation to groundwater and a drinking water area is important. So we had received some comments from the Conservation Commission after our first meeting. We are doing some additional soil testing to establish that we are in fact providing the 4 feet of separation to protect the groundwater resources. And then additionally, if you could, Jenny, flip to the grading plan for the phase 1. Each of the small houses would have a small infiltration system just to handle the roof runoff. So those are these little gray areas that you can see behind each building. Essentially, it's the size of a 4x8 piece of plywood, but it's a number of small chambers that provide enough voids within the soil for us to contain the volume of the roof runoff and let it soak into the soil. We've used it successfully on a number of other projects and individual house lots. But again, because we have the sandy soil here, it's really a great opportunity to maximize the amount of recharge from the clean roof runoff. We are situating the sewer system in such a way that we can make a gravity connection out to the town sewer main in Fisher Street in the future without replacing what we're putting in place for the septic system. So we're doing that by sort of focusing everything down to that center spine road, and then we're going to the rear of the site with the septic that would be removed and replaced with the gravity line going out to Fisher Street should the sewer capacity become available in the future. And the grades allow that to happen without a pump system. So right in front of our site along Fisher Street, you can see it's labeled as the town of Westborough. There's a fenced-in area that has a sewer pump station for this quadrant of the town. So the sewer coming down Fisher Street is quite deep, going into that wet well in the pump station, and leaves us the opportunity to make that connection. The drinking water supply is proposed to connect at Fisher Street to the town water supply. There is capacity within that system as we understand it. And this is a pretty small user of water as things go, having only 1 bedroom per unit. Again, you're under 2,000 gallons per day. It doesn't put an extraordinary tax on the supply system. Even at build out with 40 units, looking at 110 gallons per day, we're still under 5,000 gallons of water demand. And then electrical system. So I think the question came up in the review, and Mr. Record confirmed that these roofs would be solar ready, although they're not proposed to be solar panels at the current time. This service would be from National Grid coming into an underground system, and have several transformers laid out. Again, because they're small users, we can get multiple houses off of a single transformer, where like in a single-family subdivision with 4-bedroom homes, you might see that for only 2 homes. Here we can serve 4 or 5 homes off of each transformer and do it pretty efficiently. As far as street lighting, we're proposing that the sidewalk and the spine road right as we're entering from Fisher Street have a couple of street lights, but not go any further than that, in keeping with other single-family homes in the town. Each of the lights would have a post light out by the driveway to provide light onto the driveway and the common facility. We had submitted a landscaping plan that shows us creating a dense planting buffer between Fisher Street and the rear of the buildings that sort of back up to that. And then there are some individual street trees proposed scattered throughout where we don't have conflicts with underground sewer, water, or electric. Some of the comments we got from Public Works were needing to shift some of these around. So we do have quite a bit of review comments from departments of the town, including fire department, conservation. We have some comments from DEP to address, and we have a pretty long list of requests from Department of Public Works. So we do have some work before us. We're not looking for you to close out or do a conditional hearing we need some time to digest this and react to it and come back with a revised plan. I'd be happy to take any questions the board members might have, Mr. Chair.
So just from the viewpoint of progress, we did meet with the select board. They have provided the comments. We're going to address those as part of the revisions. From that plan, you saw there were wetlands off the site, so that basin is within the buffer zone of the wetland area. We started the process with the Conservation Commission. That has been continued pending additional soil testing and everything else. So that's kind of where we are in the processes with the town.
What are the size of the units again? How big are they?
They're about 630 square feet, maybe?
So there's one bedroom, one bath, and a kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Here.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I'm struggling to find the landscaping plan. Is that in?
Page, sorry.
It's near the end of this set, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. Site plan set? Yeah, that's where I've been looking.
So it's labeled sheet C6 in the set.
C6? Oh, no, I've gone past it.
I think, Jenny, if you go back a couple of sheets
I'm
from
going to
there.
have to use the hard copy, I guess.
All right, C6 is your landscaping plan? Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't see it in the site plan
Here.
set. Well, it's in here, but it wasn't in the one that I reviewed earlier. Well, no, I see it here, Joan. When I reviewed this online, I didn't see it, so I just wanted to.
can I ask a question, Mark?
Yeah?
Okay. My concern is lighting. You said that you would only have lighting at the entrance, but not down the streets.
Yes,
Is
through the
that
chair.
correct?
Yes, that's what we're proposing.
All right. I'm a little concerned about that, as I think for safety reasons, there probably should be some lighting. I don't know quite how to do it, but I think, and there should be some lighting down the streets, because otherwise it gets pretty dark back there. And so I think it's important to have some sort of lighting, maybe, I don't know, tall poles with a light on it or something. Something that would fit architecturally within, I like the design of the buildings, but something that maybe gives it a village-type feeling with the lighting.
At least at the intersections, if you want to call them that.
Oh, I think more than that. I think
Well,
the streets need lighting, I don't know how many, because I haven't really thought that through, but I do feel there needs to be some sort of lighting, and obviously, if at all possible, it could be something that, is not on all night either, but may, be on just partial, because you don't want it to affect the houses themselves. So it's a matter of figuring out, I'm not an authority in that, but as I said, I'd like to see kind of a village-type feeling about that with some sort of pole lighting or some type of lighting.
So through the chair, this plan is near the end of the set that we had proposed 3 poles along that central spine road coming in
Yeah.
that are in keeping with the same lights that are used along the sidewalk along Fisher Street.
Yeah.
So they'd be continuous to that sidewalk and have a similar amount of lighting over the sort of central corridor.
But
coming
just
in.
in the central corridor, not on the side. I mean, maybe you can do something, ground lighting. I mean, if you could even put, it doesn't have to be poles, if you could put some sort of ground lighting. 'cause
Yeah,
it-
landscape type lighting, you mean, yeah.
People are out walking their dogs or kids, you need something that people can see those sidewalks. So I would, see the street or, because people, because there's no sidewalk, my assumption is people are gonna be walking on the street. And if so, we need some sort of lighting, and I think you can put lighting in curbs, for example. If you have a curb, and I think you can put lighting in the curb
Yeah, I think we've made the point, so let's see what they come up with for a solution on that.
I just want to make one note to you as well. This will be a rent, all the units will be a rental unit, all owned by Richard. All the maintenance of all the infrastructure, everything else will be Richard's responsibility. The roadway system, the drainage, everything.
Questions?
That answered one of my questions. My concern is, like we had with the one before this, they're providing one parking space. What happens when the residents want more parking
Yeah,
spaces?
that was a comment from the select board, too.
So,
I'm wondering, you know, there's the piece of town property in front of that, which is not being used at all. And there is the pumping station, but the pumping station is kind of a ways down there. I'm wondering if there's some way that that particular piece of property might be used as a common parking area. It
Well,
would-
I think we were going to reach out to DPW to see what their thoughts were and whether they were using that. I know your applicant's using that as his main entrance to the site at this point, and we'd like,
Yeah, we still need comments from the DPW on that.
okay.
Yeah, so as I said, I think that might be a possible area where we could look.
But that wouldn't be dedicated to this project, but it might be some type of public parking included on there. Yeah. That would alleviate some of your concerns.
yeah. I would also, is there any plans for like bike parking?
Another select board comment. Yeah.
But there's no proposal for specific bike parking, but each of the units does have a front porch, so people, you know, could bike to and from somewhere and have a place in their own unit where they could park it.
From the viewpoint of the parking, again, what we're thinking at this stage of the game is at least another 9 kind of communal spaces. If you think there's a need for more than that, we'll design that in, but one for each unit plus another 9 for visitors and whatever we think would be appropriate, unless you want to have more.
Would it be possible to extend the, you know, at either end, where you, of this, as to whether you could put some parking in at either end of the, I don't know, almost the cul-de-sac, but where you get, where it goes down to the very end
Yeah, I don't think
there,
that
where the
there's room
keys
for
are?
that on this site plan.
What?
There's no room for them to extend those.
The thought was to try to keep it kind of central, so everybody can have kind of equal access and equal proximity to it,
No, I mean, I think if you're
the surplus
If
parking.
you're envisioning creating 9 guest spaces in addition to what we see here, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. We're exploring options now where
Oh,
we can
okay.
fit them in. So we'll be coming back to you with a proposal.
All right, so let's wait on that until we see what they propose.
Sure.
I have questions, if anything else? Okay. One of the reasons I like the online version is because I can zoom, and I can't, on this landscaping plan, I can't read the elevations, so you might need to help me. You have a retaining wall on the western side and a retaining wall on the southeastern side. I want to know what's holding back what? Like, in other words, is this project going to be higher than the project or the residential homes to the west?
Yes, Mr. Chair, these are both retaining walls that hold up the development site from the surrounding
So is there
property.
going to be any kind of fencing on
There would be
top of that?
fencing and there would be a guardrail where the driveway
Okay,
approaches.
will
the
that be shown on the plan?
wall. It's shown on the retaining wall detail that we had provided.
Okay.
It may
great.
not be called out on the plan. That was one of the comments.
No, that's fine
That
if
we
it's
got,
not-
and we'll be adding notes, you know, to that effect.
And then the one in the back is going to be, the project's elevated as well? Or is that,
Yes, sir.
okay.
That one may require a fence, depending upon the height of the wall.
How far
I'm
from
going
the
to say if the
railroad
wall's
track?
anything over 3 feet, I'm going to want a fence there to make sure somebody doesn't run off it, hurt themselves.
Well, you're fairly close to the railroad tracks there, aren't you, at the back?
No, it's pretty far.
Pretty far from
Yeah,
there.
right behind there is the
So, Mr.
high
Chair.
voltage wire lines, but there's a whole wetlands area between
all
them
right,
and
I
the
just wanna
tracks. They
make sure
can't
that-
get
So I was just going to say that the issue is keeping the gradings of a sufficient distance away from the wetland boundary to meet the commission's requirement of
Right,
providing
and
20 feet.
I don't have a problem with the retaining wall, I just want fencing on top to,
Understood.
you know, I don't want just a retaining wall that you
Understood.
can run off.
We will
Okay.
put fencing where it's appropriate and add the notes to the plan.
And then back to the westerly one, when you're doing the lighting, I think I would prefer some type of ground lighting so that we don't have light poles that will be elevated, that the people to the west would, I think, we can talk all we want about light spill and everything else, but I think if somebody is looking up a retaining wall over a fence and sees light poles, that's going to bother them. So I think, while I do agree with Hazel on the additional lighting, I don't necessarily think it needs to be tall light poles. I think some ground lighting sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better option.
Okay, that was all I had for now. Anything else? Kenny, did you have any comments?
I didn't have any additional comments. We received comments from the other departments, and I know you're still going through conservation, so we'll wait for that. I don't have a digital copy of the landscape plan, so, and I checked
Yeah,
to make sure it wasn't
I couldn't find it
uploaded.
either.
Sorry about that. I'll make
It's
sure,
okay,
make sure you get one.
I missed that also, because I saw it in the paper file, so if you can just email that
Yeah,
to
the
me.
digital set only has, I don't know, where's my
Has
number of
16
sheets?
pages.
Yeah, it doesn't have all of this. So I would love to get the digital set rather than, I don't really like these very much, but, okay.
However, I like these.
I know Hazel likes those, but I just, would like to save some trees, so, and I just can't read that. My eyes are getting worse by the day. All right, so this is a public hearing. If there's anyone from the public that wishes to address the board, I see no one in the audience that is here for this.
Oh, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry, sure. Come up to the microphone and, yeah, either one, yeah, and just name and address for the record.
Michael Wood. I live on 2 Woodman Avenue. How much you gonna get for one of these houses? It's only one person,
They're rentals.
Rental units, yeah.
and are you gonna restrict how many people can live in it? It looks like only one person can.
I think there's restrictions under,
I mean, I do have a
Oh,
concern about the parking. That's the first thing I'm saying to myself. Nowadays, even a single bedroom, you're gonna probably could have 2 people. So it's like, is
Yeah,
this
I mean,
what
it's-
the
there's
town's
6
coming to, is cramming as much of this stuff in as we can because we got a little open land?
well,
So I mean, so that's my concern. This is like, are these just like I say, if they're rentals, so you're gonna limit to how many people can live in them? Is there gonna be a limit on that? If there's 2 people living in there, how can they only have 1 parking space?
well, they can share a car. It's walkable to the train station. I believe there is state law about number of residents per living area, but I'd have to get the building commissioner to respond.
You know what I'm saying? It just seems like, I totally understand the concept of tiny homes.
Okay.
But when I think of tiny homes, I'm thinking of homeless people. And I'm thinking, not in Westborough, you're not gonna charge, you're not gonna pay, what are you gonna pay for rent? Yeah, so people who use commuter rail usually have really good jobs.
Well, okay, I'm not.
But anyway, we're not gonna talk
yeah.
about that, but my concern is that it's too small.
Okay, so larger,
Put in another 18 of those things in there?
okay, so what would you rather have, like one building with 18 600-square-foot units?
I'd rather have more realistic usage of land. If there's only so much space, you can only put in so many houses.
Okay, well, the zoning allows for 4 units an acre, and he's got a 4-point-something acre site. So I think what he's proposing for 18
I thought
units
the
is
town
more,
had
can I finish?
I'm sorry.
I think what he's proposing for 18 units is a lot more creative than a 3-story apartment building. And I actually really like the design of this. I think it's more appealing than a standard apartment. And I don't see how more than two people can move into a one-bedroom, 600-square-foot unit.
No,
So I don't see any, I don't see really any stress on the schools. I don't see,
Well,
and I do think that there's a demand in this town for something that's affordable for rentals as opposed to
no,
trying to buy.
I understand that.
I mean, there's
But I just-
people in this town that don't make enough to buy a $750,000 house.
Right, nobody in this, right.
So I actually like this project a lot, because it is innovative and because it's not your cookie-cutter garden-style apartment building.
I mean, I think that a couple could live here very comfortably.
Yeah, but
It's-
I have to debate about the idea of a couple having one car. It just doesn't exist nowadays.
Right, I mean, I understand that, but I'm just saying to you,
Right, but
I
they-
think we're looking more towards couple, I mean.
But if they have two
couples-
cars, they wouldn't choose to rent here, right? So the people renting here would choose, there'd either be commuters on the train station, or they'd be sharing a car, or they'd be single. I mean, there's a lot of demand for that. A single teacher, or a single police officer, or a single, the 20-somethings
All right,
that
well,
don't
I
have
won't
housing.
hold up any more time on that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's
that
good,
To me,
yeah.
it's, like I say, the parking is a big deal.
All right, we've heard your point, but that's our response, so thank you.
All right, thank you as well.
All right, if there's no other public comments, I will entertain a motion to continue.
So move,
And that would be for December 12th.
yeah.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Continuing this to December 12th at
Thank you.
6:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is the special permit. Public hearing for site plan application at 0 Bridle Lane, not a special permit. And this is also the first hearing, so I will read the legal notice of the Town of Westborough for site plan review hearing pursuant to the rules and regulations relative to site plan review under Section 1240 of the zoning bylaws of the Town of Westborough. The Westborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 14th, 2023, at 6:30 PM in the Great Hall of the Forbes Building, 45 West Main Street, Westborough, Mass., on a plan to construct a commercial building at 0 Bridle Lane, Westborough, Mass. The proposed project involves a 20,000-square-foot building, 62 parking spaces, and associated site improvements. Any person wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place recited above. A copy of the application and plan are available for review in the Westborough Planning Board offices at 45 West Main Street, Westborough, Massachusetts, on the Permit Pro webpage at westboropatriotpermitpro.com, and the town clerk's office at 34 West Main Street, Westborough, Mass. during regular business hours. That was in the Telegram and Gazette on October 25th and November 1st. Jenny, I will let you do some intro comments on this, if you have any.
The applicant's applying for a site plan review of this property at 0 Bridle Lane. The planning board did a site visit of the property last week. It's located in the industrial BIB zoning district and has almost 4 acres with frontage along Bridle Lane and Oak Street. And the area that it's located in is mostly commercial and industrial uses. The use is allowed by right. The applicant will present the details with the building and the parking area, but it has been reviewed by all of the other departments, and the applicant has also submitted a stormwater permit to the engineering department. And as you can see in my comments, I've included the comments from the other boards and departments, and the recommended conditions, should the board approve this tonight, have been reviewed by the other departments as well, and they are comfortable with them as written. That's all I have.
Okay, why don't we start with the applicant and the presentation, and then we can get to questions.
Certainly, thank you. Good evening, Patrick McCarty, McCarty Engineering. On behalf the applicant KNC Holdings for the proposed Boston Lawnmower facility at 0 Bridle Lane. Between the chair and the planner, I think you guys have covered most of it, so I'll keep this pretty quick in the interest of time this evening. This is the existing condition survey that we had done by Topper Land Survey. Oak Street along the bottom of the page, Bridle Lane on the left. The hockey rink is on the opposite side of Bridle Lane for us. Mostly a large open field now with some scrub brush and overgrowth along Bridle Lane and more mature tree growth at the back of the site as you go deeper in on Bridle that we're maintaining. The proposed site plan shows a 20,000 square foot footprint for the new facility. About 9,300 square feet of that will be showroom for lawnmowers, snow blowers, power equipment. The center of the building is divided into 2 areas. At the front is a parts room that will feed the service area, and also a retail parts counter at the front of the building, and then some general office space, bathroom break room in the back center. Service area is on the right-hand side of the page here, where they'll bring in the various power equipment for service and repair, as well as setting up new machines for delivery. We're proposing a covered canopy at the rear of the building. That canopy has a 16-foot clear height from the concrete slab below it to the lowest part of the steel, so that landscapers with trucks and trailers, fire department, emergency vehicles can all drive underneath that in order to loop around the building. We're proposing parking along the front of the building here, handicap, a couple EV-ready spots, and then also here that we're going to pave out of concrete rather than asphalt in case we're parking any of the larger equipment that Mr. Satterfield sells at the front of the building. 14 spaces along the side for staff, as well as some company vehicle parking here. Fenced-in dumpster enclosure within the overall fenced-in area. This would be secure, which is one of the fire department's comments, that we understand we have to have a Knox lock on that, so if they have to respond after hours and that's closed, they can gain access. Grading and drainage plan, pretty straightforward. We did soil testing, and not surprisingly, really nice gravel at the site. So we have a detention basin at the rear of the site that picks up the back half of the parking area and the roof runoff, and then another one at the front of the site that picks up the front half of the parking lot. Utility plan, pretty straightforward. Underground electric to a transformer into the building, municipal water and sewer. There will be an oil water separator on the sewer so that any floor washing that gets into the floor drains of the service area goes through that oil water separator before discharging to Westborough sewer system, and then underground gas. Landscaping plan, as you can see, we're clearing all that scrubby undergrowth along Bridle and putting in 5 new street trees in between entrances, and then 1 on either side, so we're reestablishing that tree line. There's also some nice mature trees that we're going to maintain at the Oak Street side as we do selectively clear that brushy area. Then we have foundation plantings at the building here and here, with a sidewalk that goes all along the remainder of the front of the building. Landscaping schedule is in the bottom right corner if anybody wants to see what Lar had specified for that. Photometric plan, a couple pole-mounted lights, one here and one at the back, and then we have some wall packs as well as lights underneath the front and rear canopies. 0 foot candles at all the property lines so we don't have any spillage. LED shielded fixtures. Standard details, some specifics to make sure we meet ADA grading at the handicap spots from the spot onto the island and into the building. Truck turning plans showing a tractor trailer delivery to the rear loading dock. We do have a dock height here at the back, as well as several drive-in doors to get equipment in and out of the showroom and in and out of the service area. And then fire truck turning plan that shows it looping around. We did rerun this model with the fire department's largest new ladder specs. And this curb radius right here, I'll have to get tucked in about 8 inches to a foot to make sure that apparatus doesn't drive over the curb line as it's going around the building. Just a blow up of the floor plan, again, sales area, parts area, retail parts counter, parts counter to service the technicians in the service area, bathroom, break room, offices, and then there is a partial mezzanine at the center of the building, small office area in the back half of the mezzanine, and then additional part storage for lighter stuff, chainsaws, weed whackers, that kind of stuff that can be stored upstairs. So that is the review of the plans. And then did render it just so you can see the amount of green space. So the dark green is all the mature trees at the rear of the site that's being maintained. The new street trees along Bridle. We didn't color the existing trees, but there's a couple nice oaks here, ironically along Oak Street that we'll maintain. And then the rest is lawn and landscape area. Happy to answer any questions. Jenny did share with me the conditions of approval that she's outlined, and we have no concerns with any of those. DPW did ask that we change from currently proposing the sidewalk to reserving a 10-foot easement across the frontage for a future sidewalk bike trail, what the town decides to do with in the future, and we're fine with that. We'll have to do a little tweaking to the grades of the detention basin to make that fit, but no big deal. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Hazel, go ahead.
Yeah. One thing I mentioned last time when I was out there was the lighting. Now, you're going to put a sign right at the corner of Bridle Lane and Oak Street.
Yes.
And which I understand will be lighted and so forth, but I'm wondering about signage going in there and whether there'd be lighting. I mean, it gets dark at this time of year, people would still be going there.
Yes.
That's what I was wondering, is some sort of lighting just at that entrance so people see that when they came up Bridle Lane.
Yep.
As to where to turn in there.
Why won't this let me zoom while it's full
Yeah, I'd
screen?
also, just while we're at it, I'd love to see something on that sign directing people, just entrance to the left, so people don't go driving down Oak Street. You know, let's say you're coming from the west, you don't miss Bridle Lane thinking you're gonna hit a driveway into the facility. You see on the sign.
Yeah, we do have
entrance that way.
directional signs, customer showroom,
Okay,
entrance signs on
Okay,
Bridle, and then
good.
delivery signs. And then as far as lighting at the entrances,
I mean, it can be low lighting, right? It doesn't
yeah,
have to
so
be a big.
we're showing about 0.2 to 0.3 foot candles at the entrance, which that's essentially equivalent to a full moon type of light. And then obviously as you get closer to the building, we're increasing the light levels, but we were kind of cautious not to have spillover into the right-of-way, which
No, I
is,
understand that, but I mean, you could put something on the ground, I mean, low, just to mark that entrance in there, particularly in the winter when it.
yeah, I'm thinking that the sign vendor would kind of handle the design of the sign, and, you know, if they incorporate an uplight, I think that's a good suggestion that I'm happy to pass along to the sign vendor that Donnie selects.
And my other question was on the EV charging stations.
Yes.
I would think you'd want them, I know your employees are going to be parking at the front of the building.
No, our employees are going to be parking over at the Bridle side, these spaces here.
Right, but I would think that's where you'd want a couple of EVs, because I could see people that are coming to visit to visit. If you're coming in to look at the lawnmower, you're not going to plug yourself into the EV. I'm thinking more of the fact that it's the employees that might use the charging stations.
I did listen to you on that, and so I took a stroll through the existing, and Their vehicles are similar to what I drive, you know, a large diesel truck. They're not EV folks. So I think, you know, having them,
They could be.
well,
I'm just looking ahead.
yeah, I know. There's, you know, some, I don't think that they're the EV crowd.
Okay.
So I think to have them available for the public.
Right. Okay, I just, as I said, normally, if you're going into a store, you don't plug yourself into EV because you're gonna be there for, you
Yeah.
know, 20 minutes, so that's all.
I'm old school. I'm a motorhead, so I'm not an EV guy, so I don't know on that one.
Any other questions then?
A couple questions. For the photometric plan, is it
Yes.
possible to get like a contour plan? These photometric plans are always difficult to read. So if you could do like a contour plan showing the different levels of the foot candles, similar to this, that would be helpful, if
Yeah.
you can do that. I think this just gives people a better idea as to what the photometric plan actually shows. Solar panels on the roof, are there any plans for that?
So the building will be solar ready. We generally do our buildings with 10 pounds per square foot of collateral load. You use up a couple pounds of that between sprinklers, lights, HVAC, stuff that's hung from the roof structure. Leaves you about 8 pounds per square foot of excess capacity, so it would be ready if he elects to do that.
Plan on doing that?
I don't know.
I just have a question. When I look at the traffic flow under that canopy, and they come around the building facing south, particularly this time of year when there's headlights, is there sufficient landscape screening so those headlights don't aggravate the neighbors? Or a fence or something?
At 45 Oak neighbors?
No, Woodman. 2 Woodman. It's Woodman's directly across from,
Right. We do have a spruce, all right, SP. Oh, no, so we have Stewardia proposed here at the corner.
well, I mean, if it snows a lot, the snow pile might block it, but I'm looking for something more
Sure.
substantial than that to prevent headlight spillage onto a residential parcel.
Understood.
It is. Can you pull that back up so we can,
Oh, yeah,
I can show
I was
Hazel.
just gonna do Google Earth to.
oh, here, look. Let me see. Hazel, I'll show you where it is. When you come around the corner here, this is,
Yeah, right there.
the people live here, though.
You're more, you're more in the
They're here tonight.
Pardon me, through the chair.
Yep.
Just to be clear, you're more on the closer, not directly across from the 45 driveway, you're more closer to Woodman, right? We are Woodman Avenue. Right, but you're right at the corner of Woodman and. Woodman Avenue and Oak. So you're more right here. So this is the existing driveway out of 45. Yeah, the Chase, yep. And so you're more here. I don't think I show it on the,
I mean, you've got parking spots facing them on the southern side of the site. I don't know if truck is gonna pull in there and idle with their lights on and load onto the back. You know, I just want some, again, screening for a residential neighbor.
sure,
So that they don't have aggravation from headlights.
okay.
Any other questions from the board? Jenny, anything?
I just want to make sure I have the additional items that you are asking for. The contour plan, contour photometric plan, the additional screening added along the front of the property line
Oh, not on, no,
on
not connected.
South side.
the south side.
So it looks like there's a lot of screening along there, along Oak Street, but like you said, they're going to do selective clearing of that scrub, so I think it would be good to understand what is going to be taken down and what's going to remain.
I forgot to mention, my snow blower is being serviced by Boston Lawnmower. I don't consider it a conflict, but in the interest of full disclosure, I don't want anyone to think that I'm playing favorites. All right?
And the operation hours are the same as they currently are at their current location?
Yes.
All right. Jenny, did you have more questions?
The other item I just wanted to touch on that the applicant had also stated was after talking to the DPW today, they would feel more comfortable with a 10-foot access, public access easement instead of the sidewalk in case they plan for a future bike lane, road widening, sidewalk, you know, whatever they decide to put there.
I don't know if I would support road widening, but I would, you know, support.
Not
a
road
bike lane.
widening.
Yeah. Road widening just encourages faster
But all we're
cars,
talking
so.
about is the easement, and we're not asking the applicant to do anything, we're just talking,
Exactly, it would just be an easement.
Yep.
could be used for any purpose that was deemed by the town to be necessary.
All right, it is a public hearing. If there's someone from the public who wishes to address the board, please come up and name and address. All right, you take turns. That's good. That's equitable.
We have,
I'm sorry, I just need your name and address. It's formality, yeah. Oh, yeah, if you want, don't mind using, this microphone might work if you want to sit down.
does it work?
It does, yeah.
Okay. A lot of our...
I'm sorry, one more time, name and address.
Oh, my, okay. It's Ruth Cimarelli. It's 2 Woodman Ave.
Yeah, right. Perfect, go ahead.
Okay. A lot of our concerns were discussed already. We're going to have leave some of the vegetation that already is existing along Oak Street across from us, because there are some pretty decent plants there. Yeah. So that has been addressed. My other concern was lighting. You addressed that, so we're good with that. I guess one of the things is the impact on the wetlands and stuff like that, but that's already been addressed. You guys already know that.
Yeah, engineering, conservation is
Yeah,
taking a
because it's-
good hard look at that.
We have
Yeah,
that Chauncey Well
Right,
on the other side. I'm sure it's a little bit more than 100 feet, though.
okay.
Yeah, okay, so, but one of the things growing up there, we know how the wetlands worked and all that type of thing, because we used to play in the streams and everything like that, that somehow
Right.
got developed over. So we were concerned about that,
Okay.
that we're not
Do you
gonna...
have a response for them on?
Yes. So this originally, through the chair, this originally was all one parcel as you went up
Right.
Bridle Lane.
Yeah, it was a farm, yeah.
So Land Development Collaborative, Land Design Collaborative that's here from Westborough had done a flagging of the wetlands and a survey and concepts for how this property could be developed.
Yep.
And then see this line here as I'm running along the cursor, this line?
Yep,
So that's the limit of the property that Mr. Satterfield's purchased, so it goes
Yep.
here and then follows down and around, kind of makes this
Yep.
stretched out square. This line right here is the 100-foot buffer zone line from the wetlands that are off the page.
okay,
And so we don't have any work within 100 feet, and we're actually at the closest point right here, 217 feet from the wetlands. So we're outside of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, and Jennifer, the conservation agent, has verified that and sent correspondence to Jenny and Kristen to the same.
okay, yeah. The other thing that we have concerns about, of course, is traffic. a lot of traffic. I don't know if the town could do like a traffic study on that to see the actual traffic that we get through there. The other thing is people go so fast, it's speeding there, so we're just gonna continue to have more problems with traffic.
Okay, so a traffic study on this project would only review the impact of this project
Yeah.
on traffic? So
Yeah.
how many more trips it would create?
Yeah,
I don't think it's necessary on something like this. I mean, does anyone disagree?
Traffic sporadic, I mean, in other words.
oh,
you're
it's not even sporadic,
No,
it's
but I'm-
constant.
No, we're just talking about this,
Oh, this one,
this
yeah.
project. This-
Yeah,
Right, out of Boston Lawnmower, and the traffic is sporadic.
Yeah, I mean, I realize the traffic is horrible because of the rink and because it's a cut-through and because there's a number of businesses on there. I mean, there's so many reasons there's traffic on there, but I don't think this is going to make it substantially worse. And that's the only thing a traffic study would measure, is will this use create enough traffic to substantially matter? I don't think it warrants a traffic study. I know it's got a lot of parking spaces, but that's only because zoning requires that.
yeah, I know. And we were concerned about tractor-trailer
Tractor-trailer trucks, okay.
Yeah.
How much heavy
And I
trucking
know they're
goes to?
saying they're gonna have 1 or 2 a day, but we already have quite a few that go over in there for the other businesses.
Okay.
And then people, and also the tractor-trailers will cut up to go
Yeah.
to Route 9.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know
probably-
what to do
Yeah,
for you guys.
it probably has something to do
It's
with-
zoned industrial there, right? So it's
yeah.
really hard for me to tell an industrial use that they can't have trailer trucks. That's what the town's decided to zone that industrial, so,
Yeah, a long time ago.
yeah, a long time ago.
You might think about approaching the town and talk to the DPW. Not know what the speed limit is on that.
It's supposed to be 30, but nobody goes 30. Yeah,
I go 30.
Call the police,
I go 32, and guess what? People are on my,
call the
Yeah.
police department, and ask them about enforcement.
we did. And they said they couldn't do it because they'd have to sit there all day. Yeah. So guess no on that, right?
Well, so the police department isn't under our authority.
Oh, no,
That's
no. I'm just saying we
I would
have-
suggest if that's
yeah.
an issue for you, that you go to.
Yeah, we have talked to them
The
about it.
select board has open
Public comment.
public comments that you could address those concerns with the
Yeah.
select board.
Yeah.
I can't tell the police department what to do.
Oh, I know. No, I have
was
addressed it
driving
with the
down
police
Fisher Street
department.
The other day,
And they
I got
said that they
passed, so I was
they-
pretty upset there. Yeah,
live there, right? And they said they didn't have the,
yeah. Well, I would hope that the police department is at least doing some enforcement on that street at some points. And
When
I
there is an accident.
I actually know somebody who got stopped at the stop sign at Chauncey Circle.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And got a ticket for
Yeah.
not coming to a full stop. So I know they're doing some enforcement on
Yeah.
that street. I just can't speak for how much.
yeah.
Right.
Usually when there's an accident on the corner of Woodman Ave and Oak Street, they come.
All right, so what else? I think
It's not,
I go to
The
the
what?
rink and people come.
okay, so they feel that, I use Boston Lawnmower too. I do believe it's going to add more to what already is there as far as traffic, because it's going to be landscaping trucks and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it is going to increase traffic.
Okay.
And there's really,
you have a response for that?
I
I
think
don't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
but-
I understand, and I appreciate you taking the time to come out and voice your concerns. I do agree that, obviously there will be some traffic because it's generated, because it's a vacant field now, and obviously we'll have a business there. I do also agree with the chairman, though, that if we measured the number of trips per day on Oak Street, which is what a traffic study would do, they'd come out, they'd put those rubber tubes across the road, and they'd count the number of trips, and then a traffic consultant that we would hire would look at that number of trips and say, what are you adding, and is that an increase significant enough to warrant any improvements? And I know, and unfortunately, that actually would like.
would look at
from a-
that intersection,
From a
sure.
traffic study perspective, that would actually hurt your argument, because the more trips that are existing, the percentage that we add from our development would be smaller, right? So I agree that,
So what he's saying is if there's 100 trips a day, which, we're just throwing out a round
Right,
number,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, and they create 10, well, that's a 10% increase, right? But if there's 500 trips a day and they create 10, then that's.
Right,
help me with
exactly.
the math, like a 0.2%, right? So the fact that there's so much traffic there is not, means the impact of this one project is smaller as a ratio.
I
Is it-
understand.
Okay, so that's, I don't know how much a traffic study costs. I mean, I know how much past have cost, but
the last proposal, I just got two prices for a project in Auburn. One was 14,000, one was 17,000.
so, I mean, we're trying to encourage small businesses in this town. I'm really reluctant to make somebody spend $14,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a study where I think I know the answer that, you know, this, I mean, this is an established business in town. I've seen, you know, I've been there, and there were like 4 cars in the parking lot the other day on a Saturday afternoon, so I don't
Yeah,
think
I've
we're
been there on
talking about
Saturday,
it. I
too.
mean, compared to some uses there that would be allowed by, you know, by right,
Yeah.
I feel like this is a pretty low traffic usage, so I'm reluctant to ask them to spend that kind of money.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, two things, ma'am. As the chair alluded to, the zoning, because we have a retail component, being the showroom where all the lawnmowers and that are on display, the zoning requires us to have 47 parking spaces for that. And then we have the office area and the employees. So zoning says we need 61 parking spaces. We certainly know we don't need 61 parking spaces. If we had 61 people in there, it'd be like the best day ever in the lawnmower sales business.
And plus it would
So
also
it's
require
not,
a bigger building.
yeah, it doesn't equate 1 to 1. The other thing is I hope you'd take a little comfort in the fact that, one, we're the engineers on the project, but two, we're actually the builders. So it'll be our own employees that are out there doing the site work and building the building. And so I'm happy to meet with you before we do any clearing, and you can see which trees I'm saving.
Okay.
And we'll wrap an orange ribbon around those trees along Oak Street. Obviously, the ugly, kind of ratty, scrub brushy stuff we don't want to keep, but anything that's nice and mature, that's a benefit to both of us, we'd be happy to keep. So, and Jenny has all my contact info, or,
Okay.
And one of the things about, so who would we actually talk to about the traffic? And the speeding?
Well, I think it has to go to the select board, right? I mean, that's,
police
you
first.
have a
and
response
then
for that?
Well,
selectmen.
I have discussed it a lot of times with the police.
I think it's the police and the select board. You can talk to DPW. Maybe they could put up some extra signs. Sometimes they can put up something that says settled area. Might be possible there, but it's town departments that deal with the highways and the speed limits and so forth,
Right.
not a state or county road. So those would be the people to contact.
Because that's the thing too, is even just maybe more signs that say 30 is only 2. There's one coming up.
Well, even
way.
one of those radar. I mean,
Things like that,
You know,
yeah.
that says you're going too fast and flashing
yeah.
lights. I think those are pretty effective, but
Yeah.
that's not something we can put in. You know, like I wish,
Yeah.
I would suggest getting together with some of the neighbors on, you know, Chauncey and
Yeah.
sending a written request signed by a few people. That might get some eyeballs on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's also very dangerous for people walking.
It is. 'cause
It's
a
terrible.
narrow road.
Yeah. And then what happens is people going back and forth from the Spectrum House, or even people in the neighborhood wanting to go up to the little convenience store.
Yeah.
There's no place to walk because traffic is so heavy.
But you're probably somewhere on the sidewalk list. There is a sidewalk list.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there is,
Yeah,
which has listed in town the various streets where it would be, sidewalks
yeah,
should be.
particularly on that hill.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe you're on maybe you're closer up to the end there and see.
Yeah,
I'll give you my card, and if you want to send me an email with your information, and I can relay the information to DPW and the police and the select board.
All right. I thank you for coming in, and can you give your contact information to Patrick after this so that he can notify you, and maybe you can do some type of site visit together in it?
Oh,
No?
no problem.
Well, we appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, I think that's it for now.
Do we need to continue that?
Well, I mean, do we need to continue this for any of the issues that came up tonight, such as that screening?
I mean, it's up to
I
the
mean,
board
it's
if
not-
you want to see the contour photometric plan before you make a decision, if you want to see the more screening details before.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like
make
to
a
see that
decision.
shown on the plan, but whether if there's any additional screening that they resolve.
Okay, and those are the two items you're looking for when he returns
also
at the next meeting? And I'm sorry?
Yes, one,
Yeah,
We're in
yeah.
lighting and the landscaping.
Yeah, like, exactly. So
Yeah.
is it going to make a difference to you really for another month before you get the final approval?
Yeah, so Mr. Satterfield's lease does expire June 30th. He's asking for an extension, but also it's, November, and although it's going to be 62 on Friday, it's not going to last very long. So I would, prefer an approval with conditions, but if the board isn't comfortable with that, then obviously that's your right to do that, so. I don't, as far as the lighting at the signs, we haven't even talked to a sign vendor yet, so we don't even know what the sign looks like, so I could throw a dart at the wall and show a light fixture, but it wouldn't be right, because I don't know what the sign is.
Well, I think I'd be comfortable closing the hearing and making the decision tonight, but I'd want a condition in there about a contour plan instead of the photometric plan that you have.
Yep.
And I'd want to make a condition in there that there'd be
Adequate screening,
adequate screening to
Sure.
prevent headlight
Yep,
spillage.
Understood.
As, determined by the director of planning. Are you comfortable with that, Jenny?
I am fine with that. And you want the contour photometric plan submitted with the building permit application? Or,
I mean, I guess the contour photometric plan is going to be kind of useless if we're approving it.
Yeah,
'Cause that's
I
the-
think so. I mean, I think it's a good idea for future, and maybe we should look at site plan regulations and require a contour photometric plan, because I think it's a better illustration than what, the connect the dots thing that we get now, so.
I think the biggest concern is the screening for the residents, so if we have that condition, the photometric plan is kind of moot, because any light spillage will be handled by the
Right,
screening.
I mean, I, quite frankly, am perfectly willing to close the public hearing. Anything major that should hold us up from
Yeah,
approving.
I'm comfortable with that too, as long as there's a condition in on that screening for the neighbors, then, I know we had, I'm trying to see if we had some draft language on this.
Yeah, we do.
the updated conditions are on the paper in front of you. There was just a couple of things that were modified, and they're in Orange. So in addition, so do you want to close the hearing and then deliberate?
Yeah, does somebody want a motion to close the hearing? There's no one else from the public wishing to address the board.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second,
I heard Pete second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0 in favor of closing the hearing. Do you want to?
Sorry.
So for the conditions, they're in the paper that was presented to you. And then in addition to those conditions, there would be an added condition that the screening will be added along the south side of the plan. Is that correct?
Right.
Along the Oak Street side of the
Along the Oak
property.
Street side, that might be a better way of putting that.
Adequate screening shall be provided along the Oak Street side of the property.
As determined sufficient by the Director of Planning.
To screen the residential uses.
do we need to put a height requirement in?
No, I think it's going to be up to Jenny's discretion. I'm comfortable with that.
There is a condition in here, and I'll tell you the number in a second, that it talks about the landscaping. So number 33 states the applicant shall complete all landscaping per the plans provided with the application. All landscaping shall be completed prior to the certificate of occupancy issuance. So on there, I can add, the applicant shall complete all landscaping per the plans provided with the application, in addition to plantings along Oak Street. To act as a screening buffer to the adjacent residential property.
That sounds good.
I know you're close, but man,
Go ahead.
I don't think we want them right along Oak Street if we're given a 10-foot easement. That if the town puts a sidewalk and then mows over the
Right,
street.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't think we need the
I
words
think we-
along Oak
okay.
Street. Just
Just along Oak Street, which is broad enough.
sufficient screening to,
Anywhere.
Okay. That's the only residential side, so that makes sense. And one of the conditions, condition number 36, is that the planning office will need to sign off on the certificate of occupancy, so there has to be an inspection anyway to confirm compliance with all of these conditions.
All right, Jenny, number 15, it doesn't really make sense, because you took out with the 200 yards. The applicant should perform a daily cleanup of construction debris, including soils on streets from the entrance of the site driveway to where? Caused by construction relative to.
Oil on streets.
But
We can
The
cross
within-
out the from the entrance of the site driveways. Yeah, I think I agree that it was, the DPW asked me to remove a specific yardage from there and just,
Ask you to remove a specific number?
they did not want a specific yardage listed. They just wanted it to say basically clean up any site debris
Oh, right, I
created.
understand that, but That doesn't.
No, I think Jenny
Doesn't
said
say that.
to remove from the entrance of the site driveways.
Yeah,
So it would
so-
say the applicant shall perform a daily cleanup of construction debris, including soil on streets caused by construction relative to the project.
If they're
I think that's
200
general enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as I said, the way it reads.
Yeah.
Right. No, you're right. I missed that. Any other?
Yeah, typically we would, and maybe I'm missing this, we would have language on hours of construction, when they could build, they wouldn't be doing construction on holidays or on Sundays or, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The town general bylaws already cover that.
Okay, and what do they say?
Off the top of my head, I want to say, I could be wrong, 7 to 6, Monday through Friday, and I know it's shorter on Saturday, no Sundays, no holidays.
Yeah, I think the one thing about that you're gonna run across, and it might be worthwhile, the only thing I'm concerned about is the use of North Star. So, Saturdays could be a problem.
Oh, no, we're not talking about business hours, we're talking construction hours.
Well, no, I understand, that's what I'm saying, I'm not concerned about business hours, I'm concerned that construction on Saturdays when North Star is being heavily used. Traffic going in and out of the hockey rink.
Yeah, and there's also, typically, we have language on construction routes. I don't know,
So that's my only,
I mean, we've already,
I think the way the town bylaws read it runs all day on Saturday. I don't think it's just night.
I
I
think,
think it was limited on that.
I think it's 8 to 5.
so I'd like to see the trucks go down to,
Oh, of course, yes, yes, I'm agreeing.
go down to Milk Street
Yeah.
to get on wherever they're going. I don't want to see them going out Woodman because a truck going out Woodman
No, so,
can't,
I mean, you
can't
can't accelerate fast enough up
on
that
Route
hill.
9.
Yep.
And I don't want to see them going down to Lyman Street because for all the residential neighbors will be burdened. So I'd like to see all the trucks go out to Milk Street, construction vehicles.
So may I suggest a condition that we put a truck route on the plan, because we're gonna have to make a couple edits to the plan, so we'll
Sure.
put a truck
And then,
route on that.
and I think Hazel makes a good point about Saturdays. I also wonder if 7 o'clock is, I mean,
Well, that's,
there's always a balance on that, right? If you limit the hours, then,
they
the
can't get the work done.
right, and then it takes another 3 weeks to get the work done, and would you rather have them there 3 weeks, or would you rather be inconvenienced at 7 in the morning for a little bit?
It's the Saturday ones with North Star that I'm more concerned about. So I would like to see that limited at least to half a day, because I think under the town laws, you can work all day Saturday.
Well, there's no construction vehicles parking off-site. There will all the vehicles will be
site.
on-site.
I would rather have them get the project done with.
I mean, I think, to be honest with you, the people going to North Star are probably used to traffic, right? I mean, they're,
I agree about that, the North Star, I gotta tell you, the traffic is brutal there.
so I can live with the general bylaws, but I don't know if you want to put language in as a condition, at least on the truck route, the construction vehicle route. All vehicles will go west on Oak Street to Milk Street.
All vehicles will travel west on Oak Street.
Right. When leaving, and come east from Milk Street when entering the site. I don't want trucks coming off of Route 9 on Woodman either. Then they have to take a left and a right. I mean, that's,
Now, wait a minute, they can't go, it doesn't make sense for them to go out on Oak.
Oak to Milk. Then they have a traffic light that they can turn left and get on Route 9, either east or west. Now, that intersection is poor for any heavy trucking, but it's the only intersection we have, so. What's that?
A truck can't do Woodman to 9, it just can't accelerate, I mean, 80,000
Right.
pound.
I mean, they have,
It's not going up that
they have
hill.
problems coming out of Extra Mart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so,
Well,
So
he'll
the
show
hours of
traffic
construction
on the plan.
pursuant to the general bylaw,
Let's just leave
all
that.
vehicles will travel on Oak Street when exiting and east on Milk Street when arriving.
right,
Okay?
okay. Is there anything else we've been through? I think other than that, that I'm fine with the conditions. All right, does somebody want to make a motion on this?
And you don't have to read all of the conditions. I know there's quite a few. You can reference this and then add this that we discussed.
I move the planning board approve that an application for site plan review for a proposed commercial building at 0 Bridle Lane as shown on the plan set entitled Proposed Site Plans Boston Lawnmower, prepared by McCarty, isn't it McCarthy? McCarthy Engineering, McCarty Engineering, Inc., dated October 4th, 2023, subject to the following conditions.
Second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0 in favor. All right, thank you for coming in.
Thank you all very much.
All right, good luck.
I guess I didn't have to read.
All right, next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the adoption of rules for the deposit of a performance security per Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53G and a half. This is the one that I mistakenly thought had to do with signing, but this is the performance security. So Jenny, I will let you summarize this and,
Pulling it up on the screen
yeah.
for the audience. So this is a public hearing, so you'll need to read the legal notice.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got to read the notice, okay. Legal notice of the Town of Westborough. Town of Westborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 14th, 2023, at 6:30 PM in the Great Hall of Forbes Building, 45 West Main Street, Westborough, Mass., in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53G and 1/2. The Westborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing regarding the adoption of proposed rules for deposit of a performance security. The purpose of the rules is to provide a mechanism for the planning board to receive, administer, and expend as necessary financial security posted by applicants. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed adoption should attend a public hearing. A copy of the draft planning board rules for performance security are available for review in the Westborough Planning Board offices, online at westboroughmass.gov, planning pages, planning board, and the town clerk's office at 34 West Main Street. That's during regular business hours, and that was in the Telegram and Gazette on November 7th. Is that?
Thank you.
I think this one's pretty cut and dried, but I'll let you summarize how I think.
Yeah, it is pretty straightforward. So essentially, the planning board takes performance security per Mass General Law 53G and a half, not to be confused with 53G, which is about the hiring of third-party consultants.
Right.
I don't know why they number it that way, but it is what it is. So the planning board is authorized to adopt rules pursuant to that Mass General Law to basically spell out the procedure on how the performance security is collected and then returned to the applicant. This is for any special permits or site plan reviews or potentially other projects, but it is not for subdivisions. That falls under the subdivision regulations, so that is a separate item. So this has been through town council for review and approval, and now the board just needs to approve these rules and adopt them as a supplement to the existing planning board site plan and special permit rules.
Questions from the board? We have a motion?
I move the planning board adopt the rules for deposit of performance security pursuant to section 53G.5 of chapter 44 of the Massachusetts General Laws as included in the planning board packet.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0. I forgot at the beginning of the meeting, I wanted to announce that we're having a public hearing, or public informational session on the MBTA housing choice zoning. That would be December 5th in this room at,
6 PM.
well, we have the room from 6 to 9, but I don't know if we're going to do it at 6 or 7. What do you want to do?
What usually works for those type of
I'd like to give
meetings?
commuters a chance to get home if they want to come, so I would say 7 on that.
Number 5th.
7, okay.
Is that going to be a planning board meeting? Or
It's
just
not a planning board meeting, it's an informational session for the public, Jenny and
Who's
I.
going to be giving, Jenny, are you going to be giving the presentation on that?
Yes, myself and Mark.
Probably Jenny, because nobody wants to hear more from me.
Yes, I will be giving a presentation, and then we'll open up for questions.
Yep.
And we were also exploring a virtual component, potentially to have people be able to log in and ask questions online.
Good.
But we'll have to still figure out the logistics of that, because we would need someone to monitor the Zoom meeting and the questions and answers. So we're still working on that aspect of it, but it will be just explaining what we're proposing for the zoning and the compliance analysis, and then the economic feasibility analysis.
Yeah, if everybody here wants to come, should we post a meeting, or? I think I would rather have our discussions on it when we have our public hearing.
I don't see a need to post the meeting officially. I mean, it will be advertised as a informational meeting.
Right.
The board will not be able to deliberate at the meeting if you are all here. So you would have to hold that until the actual planning board meeting. But
Right.
you
I
can
mean, we'll
definitely
have-
ask
we're gonna have-
questions.
yeah, we're going to have public hearings on this. That'll be the chance when we have our discussion. So,
If it helps, I don't plan on being at the informational session.
fair enough.
You want to learn more about MBTA zoning?
I have to do a meeting about it tomorrow night. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I also wanted to remind everybody that Saturday's the turkey trot, so hopefully, it's such a great community event. So hopefully, it's on everybody's calendar.
I have 2 sets of minutes.
Great.
2.
Go ahead.
October 17 and October 3. Everyone had a chance to review those. Are there any questions, comments?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Our upcoming meetings are December 12th and January 9th. We voted on this schedule of dates, or no? We don't need to.
You did vote on them.
We did,
yeah.
okay. All right. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I had a capital expenditures meeting yesterday. The DPW did the presentation and the police chief. So, and then next week I will have the other departments coming in on Monday, and then we have 3 other wrap-up meetings to discuss. Oh, the capital expenditures. Just ranking, ranking the projects and such. So we had our first meeting, or actually our second meeting last night.
And I'm still not able to attend the Sustainable Westborough meeting, so if somebody wants to take over that role, that would be great.
Do it.
We could talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Would you like a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I would like it, and I will.
I move that we adjourn.
What's that?
Oh,
Sorry.
you want me to, I can be very brief on that.
Yeah. Downtown master
The
plan is good
downtown
to.
master plan, I don't know if at the last meeting I made this announcement, but we did receive the $110,000 grant. So we sent out an RFP to hire a consultant to do the downtown master plan, and that is due, I believe, December 4th. So we look forward to seeing the results of that, and hope to start that in January, once we hire someone. The Newtown website, Select Board is having a meeting tonight also about it. So this is not something that's live yet, but this is what the planning department page will look like. So you can see it's a much cleaner version of the website, and it's a lot easier to navigate. This is the planning department page. One of the easiest features is that now we have records searches online. So in addition to all the planning board applications being available online now through Permit Pro, someone can log on and search any records prior to November 1st, which is when we went online, or after November 1st would be through Permit Pro. So we're really excited about that feature.
Any questions on either of those items? All right, I did have a motion and a second. So all, if there's no discussion, all those in favor of adjournment, that's 4-0. She, and I believe Pete
I did not say, John did. I didn't.
yeah, you seconded.
Thank you for that cough drop, I was dying.
I don't care about the new website.